All right, ladies and gentlemen, we had to get a new setup, new laptop, new microphone, new phone, because we're going to the draft. We're taking this show on the road. And before we get into our top 12 wide receivers, I owe you a massive thank you. We will be on the red carpet this year at the NFL draft. I will be interviewing the players going in round one. We will be live streaming it on this YouTube channel. If you would have told me that 3-4 years ago when I was in a college closet making fantasy football videos, not a single soul in the world was watching, I would have slapped you and called you a liar. I mean, thank you so much. The only reason we have gotten this far is because of you. Thank you. There's literally nothing else that I can say outside of shilling you. FlockFantasy.com, of course, another thing I couldn't have made without you. On FlockFantasy.com, you can find always our updated wide receiver rankings, running back rankings, dynasty rankings. And when you sign up with promo code FLOCK, you are not only going to get my rankings, but the rankings to all your favorite experts and 30% off with promo code FLOCK. And I will break down your fantasy football team in a podcast. But I think that should be it. Let's go ahead and let's talk about our first wide receiver in tier one. We are going to have Justin Jefferson. Now with Justin Jefferson, I mean, there's not too much to discuss. This is a wide receiver that was one of the best year one wide receivers of all time, a wide receiver that was one of the best year two wide receiver seasons of all time. So I wonder where this is going. Justin Jefferson is on the path to be the best wide receiver, I don't want to say ever, but maybe in the top 5 to 10 in history. He is stepping into his prime. Kirk Cousins is a quarterback that maybe isn't a perfect option from a real life standpoint. Like, yes, if you're an NFL team, your ceiling is probably severely capped with Kirk Cousins. But if you were looking at a few different measurables here, one, the fact that Kirk Cousins puts up points, whether you like the man or not. Two, the Minnesota Vikings have a seriously condensed target tree. This is not a team that decides to use 3-4 wide receivers on the field at the same time. No, this is a team that is going to pick a few of their top options, and they are going to force feed the ball to them over and over and over again. In years past, that was Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. I would say this next season, we're most likely going to be seeing it with Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. Now, if we were talking about the NFL draft and how this could maybe shake things up a bit, there are some rumors that the Minnesota Vikings may trade up for Anthony Richardson. If Anthony Richardson falls to pick 9, pick 10, pick 11, that is 100% going to be in the cards. And hell, maybe when we're on the red carpet, I'll ask Anthony Richardson what he thinks of that. In reality, I don't think we should be drafting Justin Jefferson based off the off chance that that happens. I would say it's honestly probably a bad thing for Jefferson. We definitely want Cousins in there. And then the other thing that we could end up seeing is a rookie wide receiver being added to the Minnesota Vikings. If they don't trade up to maybe get a long-term answer at quarterback, you may see them decide to go with a Jordan Addison. You may see them decide to go with a Zay Flowers later on in the draft. I honestly don't think they'll have a shot at Jackson Smith-Njigba, but if JSN was there, I think he would be a natural fit, regardless of if there's a new rookie quarterback coming in, regardless of if there's a new rookie wide receiver coming in. Justin Jefferson's wide receiver 1. Wide receiver 2 in the same tier is going to be Ja'Marr Chase. Now, we've had a lot of people asking us, how can Ja'Marr Chase jump Justin Jefferson for the number 1 wide receiver spot overall? If we are looking at Ja'Marr Chase now going into year 3, Justin Jefferson now going into year 4, both of these wide receivers are obviously phenomenal. But the one difference we have with these two players is a guy named T. Higgins. T. Higgins being on the same roster, I understand looks like Higgins didn't take a ton of production a year ago, but that's because there were 2 games that T. Higgins actually played where he didn't play. He was active, but if y'all remember, I mean, there were a few spots where we started him. I think it was a Thursday night against Baltimore. He goes out there, plays 1 snap, and then we never see from him again. So in reality, those per game numbers don't show T. Higgins as a target monster, as an elite wide receiver. But if we remove those 2 games where T. Higgins really didn't play at all, you can see that Higgins, just like he was the year prior, was one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. I would make the argument T. Higgins is the best number 2 wide receiver in the entire NFL. And if he's not the best, he's pretty damn close to it. We'll get to the Miami guys in just 1 second. So that's really going to be the only reason we have Ja'Marr Chase right behind Justin Jefferson, just because he's having to share those targets with T. Higgins. But now going down to Number 3, we are going to have a Mr. Tyreek Hill here. Now with Tyreek Hill, we just got done discussing, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think you have a very comparable situation between Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You have an extremely condensed target tree where, yeah, there are 2 elite level wide receivers on the same roster, but you don't have a wide receiver 3 getting involved. You don't even have a tight end in this offense now that Mike Gesicki is going to be in New England. So while, yes, he is going to have the thorn in his side of a player named Jalen Waddle, y'all know I love my guy, it doesn't really matter if everything in this offense is funneled with those 2 players. And a big thing that I know people are hesitant about these Miami Dolphins is the fact that Tua is not Joe Burrow, right? Yes, I can sit here and I can say Tua is a little bit better than y'all give him credit for, but at the same time, I can fully admit that, he's not Joe Burrow, but where he's not Joe Burrow doesn't mean he's bad. If you look at Tua in any efficiency metric that you had this past year, he was phenomenal. He's off the charts. If you're looking at an adjusted yards per pass attempt basis, because remember, you really can't use per game numbers with Tua when Tua was in and out of games this past year with concussions. But if you're looking at an adjusted yards per pass attempt, Tua was numero uno in the NFL. He was top dog. The next 2 guys were like Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes. Tua is a very good quarterback, a very good coaching staff in Miami. They don't use a wide receiver 3. They don't use a wide receiver 4. That's how Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are going to be so damn productive this next season. And that's why we drafted the hell out of Jalen Waddle last year, and we're going to look to run it back. Now, our next wide receiver is going to be Cooper Kupp here. Now, with Cooper Kupp, I honestly think you could put him right alongside Tyreek Hill. Like, I almost want to. The only reason we are not putting Cooper Kupp there quite yet is there are signs that the Los Angeles Rams may just be shutting it down. There are signs that the Rams may say, you know what? Yeah, we got the Super Bowl 2 years ago, but that's enough for us. We just got rid of Allen Robinson. We're getting rid of key defensive players and Jalen Ramsey. We are looking for the long term here. Maybe we see another season where you get half of Matthew Stafford. Maybe we see another season where if Cooper Kupp tweaks his ankle, or maybe he's not 100%, he has no incentive to go out there and risk injury. Maybe we see a season where Cooper Kupp is moved through trade. Of course, the probability of all this happening is slim to none, right? Say it's a 5% probability that that happens. It's a 0% with Tyreek Hill. So I'm going to go back and forth between these 2 guys all day. You know what? We'll go Cooper Kupp at 3, but honestly, tomorrow we may have Tyreek at 4. We may have Kupp at 4. I don't really know at this point. But what I do know is our next guy will be Stephon Diggs. This is going to be a teardrop, but with Stephon Diggs, what I like about him compared to a Devonte Adams level player is Diggs going to be a little bit younger than what you would have with a Devonte Adams. Devonte Adams obviously drafted in 2014. But if we're looking at Stephon Diggs, the number 1 factor is you have Josh Allen. When you have Josh Allen, we know that the passing volume in your offense is going to be through the roof. So even if we are going to be put in a little bit of a difficult position in saying that, unlike maybe a Miami Dolphins or Cincinnati Bengals or Minnesota Vikings, maybe they don't concentrate the targets only between 1 to 2 names. Maybe instead in Buffalo, you actually have 4 wide receivers on the field for the majority of the time. You still get tight ends getting targets. You get running backs getting targets. It's spread out everywhere. We still know that Stephon Diggs, if we go back 2 years ago, he does have a top 3 wide receiver season in his range of outcomes. And the floor of this offense is so damn high that I really don't think we have to worry about Stephon Diggs not being a wide receiver 1 in fantasy. Now, our next guy with Devonte Adams here, he's a target hog. Yes, you have Jacoby Myers coming over, but in reality, I'm not as worried about Jacoby Myers as I would have been with Darren Waller. Jacoby Myers is coming over. He can be a good real-life NFL wide receiver. He can be a great run blocker. He can get on the field. He can help the Las Vegas Raiders in general. But we've seen it season after season after season with Devonte Adams. This is one of the few wide receivers in the NFL that can get close to a 30% team target share. A 30% team target share. The man is a target hog. And yes, while you're bringing in Jacoby Myers, while you may have Hunter Renfrow as a wide receiver 3, what you don't have to deal with is Darren Waller over the middle. And I'm going to be honest with you. I didn't really know what to expect with Devonte Adams this past year. But the second that he goes out there week 1 and he has 17 targets, you learn, okay, it's not that it was Aaron Rodgers. It wasn't Aaron Rodgers. It was Devonte Adams, and why they had so much success over the past few seasons. Now, of course, you have some of those red flags like we were talking about. So I'm going to give Stefon Diggs the little bit of an edge, but it's not a massive deal. Now, our next guy in this tier will be A.J. Brown. And honestly, this may be a similar situation to what we have with Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp going back and forth, back and forth. I could see myself putting A.J. Brown or Devonte Adams ahead of each other based on the day, based on how I'm feeling like. Because if you're looking at A.J. Brown, he's the younger, he is the ascending wide receiver in Philadelphia. And with A.J. Brown, if we were talking about maybe a best ball format, I would actually probably have A.J. Brown ahead of Devonte Adams because you are going to get massive spike weeks. We know the Philadelphia Eagles have an elite level offense. We know with A.J. Brown, he's arguably one of the best deep ball wide receivers throughout the entire NFL. Now, of course, these aren't rankings just for best ball leagues, so that's why we're going to give Devonte Adams the slight edge here. And what I will say with A.J. Brown is Devonta Smith had a real breakout this past year. Devonta Smith down the stretch, especially closing in on the playoffs and in the real NFL playoffs, dominated. Now, there are a few different reasons for that. One of those being the fact that, Dallas Goedert got injured. And obviously, with no Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith's going to take a step up with his target share, blah, blah, blah. But whenever we have a Devonta Smith surging, when we have Dallas Goedert fully healthy, keep in mind, Dallas Goedert's only gotten better. Dallas Goedert, every single year of his NFL career, has increased his yards per game. There's some serious target competition for A.J. Brown in Philadelphia, where that's not necessarily existent for Devonte Adams. If I was playing in best ball, given the elite spike weeks we may see, I would probably go ahead and I would probably take an A.J. Brown. If I was playing in a traditional redraft format, I'd probably take a Devonte Adams. And this is just going back to what we were talking about. I mean, y'all know we draft on Underdog pretty much every single day. We drafted over 700 teams on Underdog last year. It's best ball, so there's no time commitment at all during the season. I mean, that's why we drafted over 700 teams, won about $150,000 last season on Underdog. So if you wanted to get in a draft today, that's how you do so. You can find the link in the description. Sign up with promo code FLOCK, and you're actually going to get a 100% deposit match, so it's pretty much free for you to check out. And also, it's just my favorite place to draft. Now, staying in the same tier, we are going to go ahead and look at CeeDee Lamb, a wide receiver in Dallas that we can safely say is improving every single season. I mean, go figure. You have no Amari Cooper in Dallas this past season, so you are seeing that step forward from a CeeDee Lamb. Now, you have Brandon Cooks coming over to Dallas, and yes, maybe you can be a little bit concerned that Brandon Cooks is an improvement over the depth that they had last season, but in reality, I think what we also may see from this Dallas Cowboys offense is we may actually see more passing attempts this past season, because if you look at the Dak Prescott volume that you've had pretty much over the past 4 years, this last season was almost an outlier for Dak Prescott and this Dallas Cowboys offense. What you had is you had the defense playing to almost an elite level at times and allowing the Dallas Cowboys to just continuously run the ball over and over and over again with Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Now that Zeke is gone, of course, I don't necessarily think Zeke is a great running back, but we could still see the change in game plan of the Dallas Cowboys if they skew a little bit more pass happy. Even if a Brandon Cooks comes over and bolsters the wide receiver depth with his team, it honestly may not even matter. CeeDee Lamb is still so damn young. He's younger than Kenny Pickett, who's going into year 2 of his NFL career. CeeDee Lamb's still going to continue to improve. CeeDee Lamb's in an offense that I'm going to expect to have more passing volume this next season. So in my mind, it's a very safe pick to make. Now, our next wide receiver leading off this next tier is Amon-Ra St. Brown. Now, of course, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, we're going to have to give him a slight bump going into year 3 with no Jameson Williams for the first 6 games. To be honest with you, though, I know we've talked about this time and time again, but I was not worried about Jameson Williams. The reason I wasn't worried about Jameson Williams is, in my mind, Jameson Williams will be a great real-life NFL wide receiver, how he's able to stretch NFL defenses, but I don't think he's going to be a target hog. If we go back to what he did at Alabama, while yes, he was the best wide receiver on the best roster in college football, it doesn't necessarily mean he was dominant. Now, yes, he was incredible. Okay, he was very good. But if we're going to go and look at his target share, if we're going to look at the percentage of his offense that he accounted for on a per game basis, Jameson Williams had a target share that was hovering in the low 30%. This isn't Drake London level dominant. This isn't Garrett Wilson level dominant on a way better roster. This is a wide receiver that wins with efficiency, that doesn't take a lot of targets, and could dramatically improve a team's offense. Now, I don't think he was going to take a lot of targets away from Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think they play in almost two different areas of the football field entirely. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown as that underneath guy. You have Jameson Williams as the over-the-top guy that creates space and helps Amon-Ra St. Brown underneath. But of course, now Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to get a guaranteed 12 targets a game for the first 6 with no Jameson Williams, so we will slide him here. In our next guy, we're going to have Jalen Waddle. I don't want to speak on Waddle too much. I mean, we've talked about it over and over and over again. I think Waddle would have had an even better year last season if it wasn't for the Tua concussions, which I'm assuming we're not going to have to deal with this next year. Y'all know he was my most drafted wide receiver in fantasy last year. We won a lot of money off him. He was an elite prospect coming into the NFL. He was phenomenal in year 1, even better in year 2. The man's just on a great trajectory. And going back to what we were talking about with Tyreek Hill, situation's actually pretty good where I'm a Tua believer at this point, and you don't have a lot of target competition. Now, let's talk about one more guy here that I have to sneak in, and I don't want to talk about him too much either, just because I feel like it's really uncertain right now. Garrett Wilson. Now with Garrett Wilson, beautiful year 1. He was also an elite wide receiver prospect. If you're looking at Garrett Wilson, I mean, the man dominated in an offense that also had Chris Olave, that had Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, Jameson Williams was sent to the bench because Garrett Wilson was so damn good. The reason it's difficult to talk about is we thought Aaron Rodgers would be a New York Jet by now. I mean, I was almost certain of it. I still think it's more likely than not that Aaron Rodgers is a New York Jet, but I feel like every day that goes by that it hasn't happened, is the trade a little less likely to? I still think more times than not, Aaron Rodgers will be a New York Jet this next season, but I'm beginning to get a little bit worried about it. The second that that trade does go through, however, we will be willing to move Garrett Wilson. I don't want to say to the top of this tier, but definitely ahead of Jalen Waddle. But I think that's all we have for this video. Again, thank you so much for being a member of the flock and supporting the channel. And please, make sure you are here before the NFL draft, that you are here while we are on the red carpet asking these prospects any questions that you have. So please go down to the comment section. Let me know what those questions are. Let me know what you want us to ask them. But thank you again for everything, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate you and really hope that you have a great day.